This conference will now
Yeah.
be recorded.
Okay. So yesterday we did some work on the device management. For the remote meter, we have created one new device category and then device. We also have done some work on the master data in billing, wherein we have created the billing class, rate type, and the operands. These operands you have created keeping in view of the RTP, what you're going to design. Basically, whatever the output you are going to get from the RTP, based on that, the operand value will be available, and then the billing execution can happen. So we expect the RTP what we're going to design will provide us 4 outputs: the total of on-peak consumption quantity, total of off-peak consumption quantity, mid-peak consumption, and also maximum peak demand, the demand which occurs for consumption corresponding to peak consumption for the 15 minutes duration throughout the period of time where the consumption has been recorded. But we are unable to create the rate because unless we have the RTP interface, we cannot create the rate. And to create RTP interface, we require time of usage group, which you have created. And now we have to create what you call the RTP components. And once the components are ready, we should be able to create the RTP interface, because in the interface, you're going to assign the RTP components. And based on the RTP components, you come to know what are the outputs you're going to get from the interface. Now, essentially, what is RTP component? First, let me briefly explain RTP component. We can have one or many RTP components defined and included in the RTP interface. RTP components are included in RTP interface. Now, RTP component will have input, and then based on the formula what you use, based on the formula what you use, certain outputs can be derived. Derived for RTP component. So we're going to talk about the formula profile. So we're going to create in EDM certain profiles. There are different types of profiles what we'll be working. One of the profile what we also include here is the formula profile for the RTP component, RTP interface. Now basically what is RTP component? Let's say for example, we have got the profile data in the time series, time and value. Let's say at morning 8 o'clock, we have got 2 kilowatt. At 8:15, we have got 2.3, and at 8:30, we have got 1.9. So like that, we'll have the continuous data. Let's say at 8:45, we have got 2.2. Like that, if you come, you will have at 13 hours some data, maybe 3. At 13.5, you will have 3.2. So like this, you'll have continuous data available 24 hours for the particular period of time. Now, RTP component will have the input data, that is a profile. Okay, whatever data we are having, this consumption data which is sent by the AMI company will go and sit in a profile. Profile is something like a storage. A profile will store the data of the consumption which is collected from the AMI company. So this profile will contain the input data, the complete consumption history for the 15 minutes interval. Okay. Now this is the input provided to RTP component. Now RTP component, two RTP components will create. One RTP component we call it as on peak, mid peak and off peak RTP component. This will be assigned with the time of usage. We have created yesterday time of usage group. Once the time of usage group is assigned, we come to know this RTP component can study through the input values which are available for the particular time of usage. That means it can segregate the data according to consumptions which are happening during the on peak and then the off peak and the mid peak. That means the input data will be in the form of profile, but RTP component has got the time of usage so that it can segregate the data according to the time of usage. That means for all the 30 days, it can separate consumptions which are happening for on-peak duration, mid-peak duration, and off-peak duration. That means it will have three sets of data, the data pertaining to on-peak, mid-peak, and off-peak. But what is to be done on this data to add it and then give it to the output to the operand? That is done through the formula, what we're going to put it in the RTP interface. The RTP component is expected to give us three outputs. One is on-peak total quantity, mid-peak quantity, and one is the off-peak quantity. So we will design one RTP component which has got a time of usage group. Now the second RTP component will be maximum demand. Okay. Basically, what is maximum demand? Internationally, we build the demand, the power based on the maximum consumption which has happened for 15 minutes duration. Okay. Even if you're not using the interval meter, if you're using a regular demand meter internally will keep on storing consumptions which are happening for 15 minutes. But end of the month, when you see the output of the meter, it will show you the corresponding for the 15 minutes consumption, what is the maximum power which has happened. Okay, that means maximum demand means the highest power that came into picture for the consumption for a 15 minutes duration. That's the international standard. So for example, in a factory, we have got various machines, 10 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt, like that. Okay. Sum total, if you add, it may come to 70 kW. Okay. But 70 kW is not running all the time. Sometimes some machines will come on, some machines may not be working. So during the entire course of month, what is the maximum demand that came into picture, which ran for 15 minutes? That is the power, the rated power of the equipments is taken into consideration for demand billing, okay, the power billing. So in our case, we'll have the 15 minutes duration. So among the 15 minutes duration, which is the highest consumption, once you know the highest consumption which has happened, the demand can be calculated. Basically, what is demand? The energy is equal to demand, the rated capacity, into time of duration, how many time it has run, what is the period in the hours. Okay, suppose every 15 minutes you have got a data, the data which is the highest consumption for 15 minutes can be taken. Let's say it is 4.5 kilowatt hour. Okay, this is the highest consumption which has happened for 15 minutes duration. How the demand will be calculated? Demand into the number of hours. What is the number of hours here? It is 15 minutes by 60 minutes. Okay, that is 1 by 4. So 4.5 is equal to demand into 1.4. That means demand will be is equal to 4 into 4.5. That means the system can calculate what is the maximum demand which has happened for 15 minutes duration once it identifies the peak consumption which has happened for 15 minutes. Okay, but this peak can happen at any given point of time. It is not bound by the time of usage. It can be during on peak, off peak, or mid peak. Okay, so the second RTP component will not have the time of usage group. We will only consider the highest peak which has happened for the 15 minutes throughout the month. Okay, and that value will be taken into consideration for the demand calculation. So two RTP components we are going to have, one which is working on the time of usage group, based on which it can identify on peak, mid peak, and off peak values. And the second RTP component can study all the consumptions which are happened during the month, take one consumption which is the highest during the month for 15 minutes. Based on that, it can give us what is the demand, maximum demand which has come into the picture. So two RTP components we are going to create, and one of them will be having the time of usage. So let us go to utilities, go to EDM, interface to RTP billing, define RTP component, create RTP component. Let's say our first RTP component is 60. We'll call it as on, mid, and off peak. And the block category is time of usage group. We'll select the time of use group. And the block is 6,000. We have created yesterday one time of usage group as 6,000, which is having 3 times of usage. So once you copy, it will show it has got 3 times of usage types: 6,000, 6001, 6002. 6000 contains the time interval for the on peak, 6001 contains the mid peak duration, and 6002 contains off peak. Okay, so basically the component will have the access to the interval data segregated into the time of usage. So now we will save it, and before you want to use it, you have to activate. Once you activate, you cannot change the data. So activate the RTP component. Activate, yes. So 60 is the RTP component what you have created, first one. 61 will create the second one. We'll call it as max demand, and it has got no time usage because, as I explained, it can happen at any given point of time. Only it is interested in finding what is the peak consumption which has happened for 15 minutes, and based on that, the demand will be considered. So there's no time of usage here. So just you have to save it, and then you have to activate. So save it and then come back. After creating the RTP components, we will now define the interface, create the interface. So we'll go a bit slow here because it involves a lot of components. Step by step, we have to do it. So let's say RTP interface is 600 is the RTP component interface we are creating. We'll call the RTP interface as on, mid, off, peak, and max demand. Now, wherever you're going to use RTP interface, we will make use of particular formula profile calculation. What is formula profile calculation? I will explain. Basically, what is profile first? We'll have to understand. Profile is coming from the EDM. So in EDM, we create 4 different types of profiles. Actually, there are 5 profiles. One of the profile type is left to SAP to create during the synthetic profile. But 4 profiles we can have it done or created. And one type of profile what we use is called formula profile. Formula profile means it will have input profiles and the output profiles. So here we'll have a formula for the profile calculation as copy 01. This is a module program. Based on the module program, the input and output profiles will be connected. So we're going to use copy 01, copy one profile into 2 output profiles. So what is the job of this formula profile? Now you will have an interval data. This data is stored in the input profile. Input profile means the profile which is assigned to the meter. After we create the EDM profile, we will assign the profile to the meter. That means this meter has got consumption according to this particular profile. So every smart meter will have its own profile. if there are 1 million meters, there will be 1 million profiles because each meter has got its own consumption. So naturally, whenever you are importing the data from the AMI, the data has to go and sit in the particular profile corresponding to the meter. So in the particular profile assigned to the meter, we have the actual input consumption data, which has been measured by the smart meter. Okay. Now here, when you apply the copy 01 formula, what it will do, based on the input profile, it will generate two output profiles. It will create two output profiles. One output profile will be copy of kWh. One will be copy of kWh, and one will be copy of demand. So what is a copy of kWh? Let's say, for example, taking these four as the value, okay, one output profile will be containing the same value copied into one output profile. So the output profile will have the same data copied as it is. One more profile will contain the corresponding demand values calculated for each interval. Okay. So how it will be calculated? For each interval, it knows the consumption. So it can calculate the demand. How will the demand will be calculated? This is equal to 4 into 2, that is 8. Okay. That means it is multiplying the kWh with 4. Why it is multiplying with the 4? Because all the consumptions are happening for 15 minutes. 15 by 60 is 1 by 4. So 4 into the consumption kWh will be kW. Okay. So like that, it will have, data calculated for each interval, which are containing the demand values. So based on this formula, it will generate two output profiles. One will be the quantities as it is, which are available in the input profile, which are containing the actual consumption values. The second one will be having the demand values. So there will be two output profiles, one containing the energy data and one containing the demand values calculated for each interval. So what is the use of this particular formula profile? We will see now. So based on this copy 01, it will give us two output profiles, one containing the kWh value and one containing the kW value. And all our data is stored in the interval length of 15 minutes and our division is 60. That means our interface is designed for 60. Enter it. Now go to resulting parameters. From the RTP interface, what is the output you're going to get? Because what is the purpose of the RTP component, RTP interface? It is supposed to work on the profile data and give us the discrete values which are available for billing. So based on the RTP design, what you're going to design, we will get four outputs: total of on-peak quantity, total of mid-peak quantity, total of off-peak quantity, and the maximum demand. Okay. So the first resulting parameter is number 1, for which the unit of measurement is kWh. Okay, it is kWh, kilowatt hour, and resulting parameter description will give it as on-peak quantity. And what is the operand category? This quantity will be assigned to our operand, which is defined as a quant. Basically, in our definition yesterday, all our quantities have been defined as quant. Quant means general quantity, consumption in kWhr. Okay. So the operand category is going to be quant, and resulting function is sum. It is sum. That means the total consumption which has happened during the on-peak consumption will be added together. Then we come to know this is the total consumption for the on-peak quantity. It's going to sum up the values which are happening in the on-peak duration. So that's why the resulting function is sum. Sum is a kind of a model program which will add up all the values which are happening in the particular duration of time. So now we will copy. Then the resulting parameter number is 2, which is again unit of measurement kWh, and the resulting parameter is mid-peak quantity. Again, operand category is quant, and the resulting function is sum, and then copy. Resulting parameter number is 3, which is again kWh, but it will be off-peak quantity, and it's going to be operand category cont, and the resulting function is sum, and then copy. The resulting parameter number 4 is kW because it is a demand, so it is a kW, and resulting parameter description is max demand, max or peak demand, and the operand category here will be demand. Yesterday we created the operand as demand, and the resulting function is the peak value, maximum value. Okay, so we have to select here maximum profile value, peak, and then copy. So that means we have fixed what are the parameters we're going to get out of the RTP interface, so that these values can be given to the operands which are there in our rate. Okay, so we have got 4 quantities in our rate. Each one will get the value directly from the RTP interface. That's why it is asking us to include the RTP interface when we create a rate. Whenever you're creating a rate for the interval meter, we need the interface because it is the interface which is giving the runtime values to the operands. Now we will include the RTP component. In order to get the resulting parameters, we are going to make use of 2 RTP components. The first RTP component is going to be 6060, that's on peak, mid peak, priority number 1. So this will be executed first, priority number 1, and effectively we will say this is available from 01/01/2020. Okay, and then we have to activate it. It is already activated. That means from which date this particular RTP is available. Okay, so we are saying from 1st of January 2020, or we can also make it as 1st of January 2019. Okay, our installations, everything is 2019. Doesn't matter. Whatever the date on which your installation is active, from that date, this RTP interface should be activated. So 1st of January 2019 to 31st 12/999, and then it is activated. So include this. So RTP component 60 has been included, and then we will copy. So the first RTP component, we are using it as priority number 1, which is basically on peak, mid peak quantity, and then we have included in the RTP interface. The second RTP component is going to be 61. It is going to be 61, and then it is going to be priority number 2, and then from the date 01/01/2019, and then it is activated. So include this and then copy. So now if you see on the left side, you have got 2 components, 60 and 61. Okay, so first we'll save it. After that, we have to select the particular on peak, mid peak, off peak component. Now you have to assign the values, input parameters, output parameters, and the time display. Time display will come automatically. Okay. Now what is input parameter? Input parameter will be our profile, what you're going to get. Okay. That means we are assigning a profile to the meter. That is the input parameter. We are not assigning any profile here. So one way is you can assign the profile directly here, or you can leave it open so that tomorrow we can use this particular interface for any number of installations. Okay. So first we'll put the date here as 01/01/2019, and instead of profile, we'll assign a role here. What is the role here? Consumption measured. Okay. That means if you assign the profile to the meter with the role as consumption measured, that profile will be available to act as the input parameter. Basically, when you create a profile, you have to assign to the meter. While assigning, you have to mention the role. What is the role? Consumption measured. That profile contains the value which are actually measured. So if there is a profile assigned to the meter with the role as consumption measured, that profile will act as the input parameter. It will provide the input data. So that will be taken into consideration for the on peak, mid peak, off peak RTP component to analyze the data. Basically, how it will analyze? Based on the first output parameter, which is copy of on peak, mid peak values, which we have assigned it in the particular RTP component. So here we are putting the date from 1st of January 2019, role is 0001. So now include this, insert the component. Okay, so first we have to say 0001 and then copy input parameters. But here you have to get the copy button, input parameters, output parameters, priority number 1. So if you see here, input parameters. So you have to select this one. Input parameter we assigned RTP component 60, parameter number 1. From the date is going to be 01/01/2019. And then instead of profile, you are putting the role. What is the role here? Role is consumption measured, and then copy. So now it will turn into green color. That means as far as the RTP component 60 is concerned, the input value will be the actual profile data, what you're having. Now, output parameter. What will be the output parameter? Output parameter will be basically, there will be two output profiles. As I mentioned here, there will be two output profiles, one containing the actual energy data, one containing the demand value. Now, on the output profile, which is containing energy data, the component will segregate the data which is happening during the on-peak duration. So let's say this will have the continuous data starting from midnight to again next day 11:59. Like that, we have the data for the whole month. Okay, but in that particular data, it will segregate the data which is pertaining to on-peak duration, and it will add the sum value. That will be our output. So basically here we are going to say the resulting parameter number will be 1. That is the on-peak quantity. So now copy. So now it has copied the output parameter. So input parameter is the actual original profile. The output parameter is basically based on the first output. The first output is containing all the energy data, but on that it's going to work. RTF component is going to work with the time of usage 600. You can see the time of usage is 600, and it will add up all the values which are happening in that particular duration of time. Okay, and then this will be the resulting parameter number 1, which is basically total on-peak quantity. Likewise, we'll go to the second one. Again, select the input. The input parameter here will be the same from the date 01/01/2019. Now role will be consumption measured 0001 and then copy. Now in this case, it's going to use the time of usage 6001 on the first output profile, which is containing the energy data, and then add up all the values which are happening during the mid-peak duration, because 6001 is the mid-peak duration. And then once it adds up, it will give the output parameter, that is a sum. And the resulting parameter is going to be basically addition of that. So now we will copy this. We already copied. Now go to output parameters and then say resulting parameter is going to be mid-peak quantity and then copy. So in the RTP component, you have got 3 types of usages: on peak, mid peak, off peak. For all the values to be calculated, we have the same input profile, but from the input profile, because you're using a copy 01, it will generate 2 output profiles, which is containing the energy data as it is and the demand value. But the component has got 3 times of usages, and for each time of usage, it will work on the data which is basically pertaining to particular time of usage, and then it will add up and then give the resulting parameter. So now we will go to the third one and then select it. Input parameter is same 01/01/2019, and then role is going to be 0001 and then copy. And the output parameter will be the sum total, that is basically the off-peak quantity, and then copy. So the first RTP component, we have included in the RTP interface. So how that RTP component will work? The RTP component is getting the data from the input profile that is basically assigned to the meter. Then because we're using a copy 01 as a formula, it will generate two profiles. These profiles will contain, one profile will contain as it is the energy data, which is in kWh. On that, the first RTP component will work and then segregate the data according to time of usage. So now here the time of usage is 6002. So 600, 6001, 6002. Each one will have its data corresponding to time of usage. It will simply add up those values and then get the total output value as the RTP output. So I've got three outputs here: the on-peak quantity, mid-peak quantity, off-peak quantity. They are the resulting functions. Now we'll go to the second RTP component. The input profile will be the same. That is basically our input profile containing the energy data. So 01, 01, 2019. Here, the role will be consumption measured. That is actually the profile assigned to our meter consumption measured, and then copy. Now, output will be here basically the resulting parameter number one, the maximum demand. That's a peak demand. That is demand max. Okay, and then copy. So here we have got four outputs. One is on peak, mid peak, off peak, and the maximum demand. So now we will save it. So our RTP interface is ready. Now we can check the time of display, whether it is coming correctly. So go to change RTP interface. Our RTP interface here is 600 and then continue. First you can see the data what we have assigned. Copy 01, 50 minutes interval, 60. Copy 01 will perform important function of creating two output profiles, one containing energy data, one containing demand value. And we have included basically two components here, 60 and 61. 60 will take care of finding out the total of on-peak quantity, mid-peak quantity, off-peak quantity. 61 will find out the maximum demand which has happened during the particular period of time. Now, if you select here 60, this is the input parameters, which is basically going to be the input profile assigned from 1st of January 2019, and the corresponding output parameter will be the on-peak usage type value. Similarly, if you go to the second one, you will have the input data and the output data, which is output data. Copy of consumption quantity. Now here you can see copy of consumption profile quantity. What is copy of consumption profile quantity? This particular input data is given into two output profiles, one containing the energy data, one containing demand value. But on this data, it will work for the particular duration of time. What is the duration of time? As per the time of usage. On the copy of the consumption profile quantity, it will work according to time of usage and it will add. Okay, like that for the mid-peak value, and that way for the off-peak quantity. But coming to maximum demand, it will have copy as a demand profile. Okay, we are not taking the copy of consumption here, we are taking copy of the demand profile. That means for each duration it will find out what is the demand value by multiplying 4, and from that copy of the profile it will take one value which is a peak value, which is the maximum demand which has happened. That will be the output. Now we will see the time of usage, how it is coming. So if we go to the component, let us say 60, and then RTP components, time display. Now here we will see time display showing in 3 different legends. Okay, this is starting from morning 1 o'clock till 60. Okay, now here we are able to see some consumption is happening from morning 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, then it is showing in the red color. Okay, this is the on peak. Okay, this is on peak. Now this is the mid peak value. Okay, this is a mid peak value from 2 o'clock to 18 hours 59 minutes. Okay, that means this is on peak duration. This is a mid peak duration. This is the off peak duration, which is starting from night, 7 o'clock till midnight, and then it is crossing over to next day. So this color and the first color will be the same because both are off peak only. Okay, that means from morning midnight to next day morning 6:59, and then previous night from 7 o'clock to 23:59. That entire duration will be off peak, but they're happening in two different duration of time. So the color legend is the same, whereas the on peak has got a different color legend, and then in the off peak you've got a different color legend. Mid peak has got a different color legend. So if your assignment of the RTP component is correct, it should show three color legends: on peak separately, mid peak separately, off peak separately. But only thing, off peak is happening in two different interval of time. Okay, so now we will save it. We have designed. Now we will see how to make use of this RTP interface to create our rate. Okay, because yesterday we could not create the rate because we were not ready with the RTP interface. So now we will go to SAP Utilities and then select the
Hello.
hello.
Yeah, hi sir.
Yeah.
This RTP component design, uh, which you explained just now, is bit, sir, confusing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I got a bit confused, so
No,
I
no,
could not
actually
understand.
it will be confusing first time, very first time. So unless you do it, you cannot understand. So
Yeah. So,
uh, it is something what I've
so
explained. You have to do it in the system, then only you'll understand. It is very
yeah.
difficult
So
to understand in the first case because here a lot of things are coming. For example, we are talking about formula profile. We don't know still completely formula profile. So
yes,
the
sir.
formula profile will come subsequently when you're going to add. So once you execute the billing, because that time you'll have the input profile, output profiles created. So when the billing execution is over, you will understand how this design has happened. Okay. So you try to go through the video once again, see step by step how I've done. You have to do it in next 1 or 2 days, this activity, so that you will understand it in the system.
So that's why I'm telling, sir. So rather than going ahead with rate, if you
Uh-huh.
would kindly stop for today, so that
Uh-huh.
I and Murli may
Okay.
at least go
Okay.
through,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Sure.
then
Sure.
we can come back with rate.
Sure.
Otherwise,
Sure.
if we
Now,
don't know till this
now
period,
what?
we don't know.
Yeah. What you can do is you already have your divisions defined in the enterprise structure. So
Yes, sir.
to create the RTP interface, you don't require anything. You have to create timer usage group, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have to create the RTP component, and then RTP design. So please
Mm-hmm.
practice today. And if you are stuck anywhere, you let me know. I'll help you. Okay, we can do
Yes,
that. You try to design today based on this, and then
yes,
tomorrow we'll continue with the linking with the rate. We can do that. No problem. Okay,
yes, sir.
we
Thank
can
you.
do that. Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow. So if you're stuck anywhere, you let me know. Or tomorrow, once again, I'll explain you with another division so that you know. Meanwhile, you practice today because unless you practice this, we will not be able to understand. All other things we are understand because this physical work we have to do. When you're doing, you'll come to know what exactly we are adding in the RTP interface. Okay. So I would request both of you to please do it today once in the system so that tomorrow we'll have more clarity on this, how to use it.
That's why, sir, only I stopped you today because at least we are 2 lessons into this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at least we would have to
Yeah.
spend 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
only we can understand the rate
Sure.
linking and all those stuff. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to
Very.
understand.
But otherwise, you'll understand anyway once the billing is executed. But for your
Okay.
own clarity at this point of time, better you
Yes,
also
sir.
do it in the system. It'll be good for you. No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.